Okay, so welcome back to the lecture. That methods. Okay, any questions? Do you have any questions from what we discussed last week? Questions, concerns, issues? Hmm? So we understood everything. No any questions? Nothing? So we are students, we don't have any questions. Don't have questions, Putta, it could mean two things. At the end of the lecture, if you're asking whether you have questions, and if you don't have questions, it might mean two things. One, it could mean that you have understood everything. So if you have understood everything, you might not have any questions. But on the other hand, right, if you have understood nothing, then also you wouldn't have any questions. Isn't it? Understood everything or nothing. But if you are in between, you will ask questions or clarifications. So what should I assume? Maybe I assume that you have understood everything. That's why there are no questions. Hmm? Is that the case? Why you are so silent? I asked this question from a student. What do you mean by research? That we discussed last time. What do you mean by research? Can someone tell me?
So it's a systematic investigation that can lead to something new.
Very good. Excellent answer. Thank you, Putta. Yes, that is research. As you very correctly told, research is a systematic investigation that leads to something new. Very nice. Okay. So let me ask another question. Right? Only one now. Another person has to answer. Or might ask to unmute yourself and give the answers. Right? Okay. So we'll ask another student. Okay. Or another question that another student could answer. The difference between basic research and applied research. What's the difference between those two? Basic research and applied research. What's the difference?
So applied research is actually aiming about solving a current experiencing problem.
Very good. Yes, excellent.
When it comes to basic research, actually, it has actually a broader target or like objective of like creating knowledge and giving new conclusions.
Very good. So in basic research, what you do is you create knowledge.
Yeah.
For the sake of creating knowledge. Very nice. Right? You create knowledge for the sake of creating knowledge. Very good. So he gave the answer very well. Then we understood the difference between inductive and deductive research. Inductive and deductive research. What's the difference? Inductive research and deductive research. These things we discussed last time, isn't it? What's the difference between inductive and deductive research?
Inductive means generating a new theory by gathering information. Deduction is actually like through a developed theory, we are checking whether that is applied in the current context.
Okay. Yes, as you very correctly told, inductive research tries to create a theory. In deductive research tries to do what? You are very correct. In a deductive research, what you do? You try to create hypotheses out of a research and you do what? මොකක්ද ඒකෙන් කරන්නේ?
Test the assumptions.
Very good. You test those assumptions. Isn't it? So that's the difference between inductive and deductive research. Okay. Okay. Right. So I think my students have got the points very well. So let me now run through a small MCQ. Sorry. So let me, you gave the answers very well, but some students are absolutely silent. Why is that? Students are silent. We have 23 students. So we don't speak that much, isn't it? We have to speak. My screen, which says MCQ's introduction. Can you see that, Puta?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the confirmation. So now we'll see some answers for the questions on the first topic that we discussed. Okay, the first question is, when planning to do social research, it is better to do what? A, approach the topic with an open mind. Do a pilot study before getting stuck into it. Be familiar with the literature on the topic. D, forget about theory because it is a very practical undertaking. So when you are doing, or when you are planning to do, not when you are doing, when you are planning to do a research, yeah, what's the best thing? Those who say A, can you raise your hands? A. Or can you please send me your answers? Right. The chat as a direct message. Chat, can you send me as a direct message? You have to send me as a direct message. Send me as a direct message. Not to all, just to me. So what's the answer? When planning to do social research, it is better to what? Approach the topic with an open mind. Do a pilot study before getting stuck into it. Be familiar with the literature on the topic. forget about theory because it is very practical undertaking. What is the answer?
Sir, A is the answer.
Okay, he thinks A is the answer. Okay, how about others? We'll ask some students, is it to be having interaction? We have Diane. Diane, what do you think is the answer? Diane? Diane is not the answer. Why is that? Then we have Pushpika or Pushpika. I'm sorry. Last time also, I think you answered that question.
Excuse me, sir.
Answer
Ah,
C.
yes, Pushpika.
Ah.
Okay. Yes, Diane. I was waiting. We were waiting to
No.
answer.
No, you spell my name incorrect. That's why. Dayan, sir.
You are Diane, right?
Dayan. Tilina.
Diane. Okay. Ekari. Diane. Sorry, Puta. Diane, no?
A
Diane.
is the answer. A is the answer.
Is the answer. Okay. Thank you. Diane, thank you. We'll see some other students. Then Pushpika?
Answer C.
Pushpika, sorry, Puta. Pushpika answer C. Then Tarang Jayavikram.
Answer A, sir.
Okay. Right. So people are saying answer A. Let me show you the answer. The answer is C. Why is that? Right? Can you remember in that 7-stage process that I told you? When you have a research question, right? First, we have to define the research question, whatever the question we have. What's the second one? What's the second thing that you do? What's the second thing that you do? You look at the literature. Why? Because literature means already done studies and other relevant information. So if you see that already a study is being performed, right, then you can get the answers from that and you can stop the research. Or if you see that it's not applied in your area, you can take the other study and you can apply that. So that's why, right, you have to be familiar in the planning, right? You have to be familiar with the literature. Of course, not even in planning, you have to approach research in an open mind. That's correct. But when you are planning the research, the first thing what you have to do is you have to read the literature. Now, in your assignment, under your assignment, you have to prepare what? A research proposal. You have to prepare a research proposal, isn't it? Now's the time that you have to plan for your research proposal, and you need to see what's the study that you need to do. So in that case, what you need to read? Now, this is the planning stage, and you are trying to get do a research. So where to start? Read literature. Read already existing studies. That's how you will start your research. So that's why be familiar with the literature on the topic. So that is very important, and I'll tell you how you can do a literature review. So yes, the importance of theory in social research is to help us to understand more clearly how we see the world. The more we think about this, the more we realized how impractical it is to ignore theory. Having an open mind is essential when it comes to analyzing our data. But which data? Familiar with the literature on the topic is important because it helps us to figure out our research questions and consequently the kind of data we need. Doing a pilot study is highly recommended once we have established our research plan, not before. So you can very well see here that this is the feedback, right? Why we need to read the literature at the planning stage. Is this clear, Buddha? Is this clear?
So I have a small question.
Yes. Of course, please do ask me that small question. No problem. There are no small, big questions. All are very important questions, indeed.
So now
Yes.
when we are going to choose the literature, from where can we start? There are so many literature published. So how to start?
We'll teach you. I will teach you, Buddha, in chapter number 5, right? What literature or what studies you need to see. It's like this now. Now, if you go to the parliament in a country, right? Now, let's say in that country, there are 225 parliamentarians. All are donkeys, right? Let's say maybe all could be treated as donkeys, but among them, you might find some intelligent people, very rare, right? Likewise, in literature, Buddha, there is good literature as well as bad literature, right? So then how to select that? Okay. How to select that? I'm going to teach you. Now, if you take Buddha food, now there are a lot of food items in the industry, in the market. How to select what is good and what is bad? Now let's take a bottle of water. Now, there are bottles to be sold or drinking water, but mineral water bottles. How to select what's good or what's bad? You will try to see whether there is any standard, right? Now, for an example, if it is certified by a standard awarding institution like SLS, right? Again, there's a question mark, but again, SLS. Why is so? Then in that case, you might have an idea that that particular item is good. That particular food item is good. Now, say for an example, at least the parliamentarian has a PhD, or let's say not PhD, sorry, not a PhD, at least that parliamentarian having A level, right? Then you might think, okay, this person might be at least having some brains. Likewise, you will be looking at Kuta certain standards. So I'm going to teach you what are those standards, right? To see to distinguish between good literature and bad literature. So there's a standard called the Australian Business Deans Council, ABDC ranking. I'll teach you. It's not difficult. You will see whether the journal is ranked in ABDC journal ranking. Then there are other indexing services like Scopus, whether it's Scopus indexed. And you can see who published that, right? Who published that? Let's say it is published by a professor in a recognized university, right? Then you might think, okay, these are things that you could depend on. So likewise, Buddha, it's a very good question you asked me. There are ways that we can establish what's good research from bad research, based on the reputation of the researcher, based on the accreditation or the standard of the particular journal, because journals are standardized by institutions like Scopus and ABDC, and you will be able to see good literature from bad literature. So I'm going to teach you, Buddha, how to distinguish this, and you will practically do that as well. Right, a good question, a very good question. Thank you, Buddha. Understood?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good. A very, very practical and a very nice question. Any further questions? No questions. Okay, then let's go to the second MCQ. Which comes first, theory or research? It comes first, theory or research. A, theory, because otherwise you are working in the dark. B, research, because that's the only way you can develop a theory. C, it depends on your point of view. D, the question is meaningless because you can't have one without the other. So what's the answer?
Answer is B, sir.
Okay,
Research.
answer is B, okay. Research, because that's the only way you can develop a theory. Okay. Now here, actually what it asks is, right, about the difference between inductive and deductive. Inductive or deductive. So what is asked is what's more important? What research is more important? Inductive or deductive? This is a question exactly like asking whether the chicken came first or the egg came first. What did come first for the chicken or the egg? We'll ask some students. We have Sena, what did come first? Chicken or the egg?
No ideas actually.
No idea. Indeed, we cannot say because without an egg, there is no chicken, and without a chicken, there is no egg. Right. So likewise, which comes first? Whether deductive or inductive research? No. It depends on the researcher's point of view. We cannot say it's theory because without testing, there cannot be a theory. Then research, without a research, without a theory, there cannot be testing. So that's why it depends on your point of view. Some researchers think that inductive research is what they want based on the research question, or the other way around. So yes, it depends on your point of view. So therefore, inductive research is better or deductive research is better, right? We cannot answer that question. We cannot answer that question because it depends on the view of the researcher. Some researchers think that inductive research is much better. Some think the other way around, right? So we cannot come up with an answer. So feedback, explanation. It depends on your point of view. Focusing on theory or research. Research means here deductive research. Represents the two main points of view in social research. Both viewpoints are felt deeply, even passionately, by their holders, and it is virtually impossible to declare a winner as it were. Right? So we cannot say what's superior, what came first. Both are coexisting. For some researchers, formulation and testing of hypotheses is the heart of science. Some people think, yes, testing hypothesis is the heart of science. Whereas for others, what may be true for the physical science is almost certainly not appropriate for social sciences. Right? In social sciences, things might not be true. You might see the same thing in different ways. Now, if I ask you whether Facebook is good, what do you think? Is Facebook good? A person who lives in Facebook will say, yes, sir, without Facebook, I cannot even go to the washroom in the morning. Facebook is so important. But for me, it's an absolute time waster. With all due respect to who use Facebook, I just tested Facebook in 2007 and I understood it's an absolute time waster and it just compares with others and it's an unrealistic world, creates an unrealistic world. So I stopped using that. So see, the same thing can be looked in different ways in a social setup. Let's take a religion. Now, in religions like Christianity, Islam, there's only one God. But if you take Buddhism, you have several millions of gods. Right? See how these are looked at in a social setup. There's no certainty in that. Right? So we have different views. That's fine. The question is meaningful since the strategies and methods followed in the research stem directly from it. Even the research results can be regarded as more or less reliable depending on the point of view. So if you do it properly, then you can see what's coming in. As with many other aspects of human endeavors, human activities outside the world of research, the question can be seen as yet another chicken and egg situation. So therefore, yes, it depends on the point of view of the researchers. Some researchers are there, I'll teach you, that who are called positivistic researchers, and some researchers are called interpretivist researchers. They hold completely different views, like two different religions. Now, how Buddhists see and how Christians or Muslims see things would be quite very different. Even the same thing. So that's fine. And that should be the way, because if all the people are thinking exactly the same way, I don't think, the variety or diversity is going to be there, and it will create some other problems. Okay. Let's come to the next question. We review the relevant literature to know what is already known about the topic, what concepts and theories have been applied on the topic, who are the key contributors to the topic, all of the above. What do you think is the answer? What do you think the answer? A, B, C, or D?
Answer D.
Okay, one student says answer D. Thank you. We'll see other students. We have now 30 students. Now we have Pereira. Number 13. Pereira, what do you think is the answer? Pereira.
Answer D, sir.
Answer D. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pereira. We'll ask another students. Zeep. Zeep. What do you think
D,
is the
sir.
answer? D. Okay.
D.
D. Okay. Thank you. We'll ask another student. Sandaruvan. Sandaruni, what do you think? Sandaruni. Sandaruni is not answering. Maybe we have to create a hypothesis what Sandaruni might be doing at the moment. Right? Maybe we need to create a hypothesis and test it, isn't it? So what might be the hypothesis that Sandaruni might be doing? Maybe we could hypothesize she is in the washroom, isn't it? Doing an activity that cannot be told in public. I don't. We need to test that. How to test that hypothesis? Once she is there, next time in the class, let us ask her physically. What were you doing? Okay. Just joking. Okay. Let's ask Jayanta, isn't it? Yeah. Jay Sutha. Jay Sutha. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing your name properly. Number 6. EXP 006. Jay Sutha, isn't it? There's no answer from Jay Sutha as well. Maybe we might need to make another hypothesis for Jay Sutha. Maybe she also might be in the washroom, right? Unable to speak. Maybe, I don't know. Then we have D. Silva. D. Silva.
The answer is B.
Answer is B. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Then we'll see other students. We have to see whether these people are there, isn't it? Okay. Vijay Singh. Vijay Singh.
Answer D,
D.
sir.
Answer D. Okay. Vijay Singh gave the answer. So I don't need to make hypothesis, isn't it? I have some other hypothesis as well. Let's see. Kalutantri is there. Kalutantri.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Hello, Buddha. Yes. What's the answer?
I think it's D.
D. Okay, great. I was about to make a hypothesis, but again, Kalutantri answered. The hypothesis would have been that Kalutantri or anyone who is not answering might be also engaged in a cottage industry. These days there are cottage industries, no? But the Yuktiya operation is capturing the people who are engaged in the cottage industry. So, just joking. Okay, very good. So yes, we review the relevant literature to know what is already known about the topic. Yes, that's the main idea. And what concepts and theories have been applied in the topic. Yes, that's another thing that you can read literature and know. Then who are the key contributors to the topic? You will know who are the key contributors, who are the key researchers in the area. Right now, for an example, when you read the literature regarding corporate governance in Sri Lanka, you will see that there are certain key researchers. So you will know who are the key researchers. Indeed, in that case, since all these could be achieved through a literature review, the answer is D, all of the above. Very good. Excellent. So this is feedback. We'll probably not be able to do a complete review of all possible contributions to our field of research because of time constraints. So you're unable to read all the research articles and the books and other information. It is crucial, therefore, to identify the key books and articles on the topic, in part by finding out who the most influential contributors are. This is an area where supervisors should be able to help because they are possibly working in that area themselves. Supervisors are people who will help you in your research. It is a waste of time to go over all ground, and in any event, we want to show we are up to date with the research area. So all ground means if you are going to do a research that's already done, then that's not a research because there's nothing new. Naturally, we are not interested in just doing a copy and paste job on what we read, but rather reading critically to find out the various points of view on offer and any possible disagreement or controversies that may exist. So you can see, therefore, all these could be achieved through a comprehensive literature review. Okay, good. Right, it's an easy question, and please be ready to answer this. A deductive theory is one that a deductive research. What's a deductive research? What's a deductive research? Allows theory to emerge out of the data. Involves testing an explicitly defined hypothesis. Allows for findings to feed back into the stock of knowledge. Uses qualitative methods whenever possible. What's deductive theory or deductive research? What's the answer? Any volunteers? Volunteers laying out. Deductive. We'll ask some students. And then Tara and Daru. We'll see. Yeah, Chaturanga. Chaturanga, what do you think is the correct answer? Chaturanga is 64.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Oh, Chaturanga is there. Okay, hello. What's the answer that you think is correct? Wrong.
Answer.
Answer A.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Chaturanga, thank you. I think you are well, no? Chaturanga, tani penne.
Yes.
හොඳයි හොඳයි. දැන් නිකන් ඇහුනේ බීලා වගේ. එහෙම වුණත් නැහැ නේ පුතානේ. දැන් හොයාගන්නත් නැහැ නේද? ආවට. Okay, just joking පුතා. Okay, Chaturanga, thank you. Chaturanga says A. Okay. Then we have another student. Francisco, what do you think is the answer? Francisco, what do you think is the answer? Hey. Okay.
Can I see the answer?
Hey, of course. Why not? What do you think is the answer? A, B, C, or D?
Answer is
A. Okay. Right. We'll ask another student. We have Samaratunga, number 5. Samaratunga, what do you think is the answer?
Answer B.
Answer B. Okay.
yes.
Right. We'll again ask Jesutha.
Answer B, sir.
Jesutha. Jesutha, what were you doing? Earlier also we asked you to answer a question. What happened? Jesutha. We even had to make a hypothesis. And might need to reject it now. Because you find the answer. Okay. You can use it. Right. So Jesutha was there, in fact. Then Madhushani.
Answer B, sir.
Answer B. Okay, thank you. See others. We have another student, Karunasena, number 22. Karunasena, what do you think is the answer?
Extremely sorry, sir. Actually, as a foreign student, I am joining from office.
Which country are you from?
I'm joining from Dubai, sir.
Dubai, my God. Now the time should be, what's the time there?
5:40, but 1.5 hour difference. But
1.5 hour difference. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Please take care. So, right. Then there's another student who says 30. XP 30, 2022, 16 EXP 030.
Answer B.
Answer B. Very good. Thank you. Then Tatsarani. Last but the not least in the list, 36. Tatsarani. Tatsarani, no answers. Yeah, she's trying to answer. What was the
Answer is B, sir.
Answer is the B. Okay, thank you. Not Tatsarani, I was about to make a hypothesis. I thought you were doing some music, some kind of activity. Okay, but again, no, you were in the lecture. Deductive research, what's that? Yes. In a deductive research, you test hypothesis. Inductive research, you create theory. Right? So A allows theory to emerge out of data. That's wrong because it's inductive research. B involves testing an explicitly defined hypothesis. Yes, that's what you do. The answer is B. Right? Allows for findings to feed back into the stock of knowledge. No, that you don't do. That might be inductive research. Uses qualitative methods. No, you use quantitative methods to test hypothesis. You use statistical analysis that you employ to check the hypothesis, which I'll teach you. I'll teach you a statistical package called SPSS. Okay, now let's ask this question from again, my good students. We have now 33. Which of the following is not a type of research question? Predicting an outcome, evaluating a phenomenon, developing a good practice, and a hypothesis. Now, DESCOM in 2010 came up with 6 types of research questions. I think you can remember. In that list, this was not there. What's there? A, B, C, or D? We'll ask our good students. We have covered almost all, so we'll start again. Giant. ESR Giant. What do you think is the answer? Giant.
Sir, answer.
Giant.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Hello.
Yeah. You can go ahead. Yes, answer.
The answer B. B.
She says answer B. Okay, thank you. Right. Then we'll ask another student. Thank you, Uta. Thank you, Jayanta. Then we have Vijay Singh. Vijay Singh. WATN Vijay Singh. What do you think,
D,
Uta, is
sir.
Answer?
D.
D, okay. This is answer D. Then we go to another one. Nissan sir. Nissan sir.
Answer D, sir.
Answer?
D.
D or D?
D.
D. D for door.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. I'm just looking at your names. Here, Samaratunga Puta. Samaratunga. What's the answer? Possible answer? C.
Can I see question, please, sir?
Okay. Yes.
Answer D.
Answer D. Okay. You. Right. Yes. Majority are correct. Answer is D. D for no. A hypothesis. A hypothesis is not a research question. Not a type of research question. Right? Predicting an outcome, evaluating a phenomena, developing a good practice, empowering. Likewise, there are another 2, which are types of research questions, but not. We did not see a hypothesis as a type of research question. It's something else. A hypothesis is a testable assumption. Okay. So which of the following is not a data collection method? Research questions, unstructured interviews, postal survey questionnaires, participant observation.
Excuse me,
Not a
sir.
data collection. Is to the
Sir, could you please show the feedback of the previous question?
Feedback. You want to see the feedback?
Yes.
Okay, you can see this. Raymond says that a hypothesis is, in a sense, a form of research question, but which is not formulated as a question. Not a type of a research question, it's a form of research question. In a way, it provides the basis for research questions, on which 7 types suggested by Key Concept 1.1 by DESCOM. Actually, there were 7, right? Including answers A, B, C. But D was not there. The research question forces us to think about what we want to find out precisely, as well as attempt to prove or disprove the hypothesis. A hypothesis that something can be changed leads naturally to research questions like, how can it be changed? To what extent can it be changed? And perhaps under which circumstances might it be changed? Okay. So you can see DESCOM came up with 6 to 7. In fact, it says 7 types of research questions. But in those 7 types, this particular question, right, type of question called hypothesis was not there. Or Buddha, is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, though. Thank you. Okay. Which of the following is not a data collection method? Research questions, unstructured interview, postal survey questionnaires, and participant observation. What do you think is the answer? Not a data collection method. What's not a data collection method? We'll again ask Piris.
Answer B.
7 Piris. Answer B.
Answer B.
Okay. Buddha, thank you. So then we'll ask Sandaruan. Sandaruani, what are you doing?
Answer D.
Answer D. Sandaruani, you answered. We made a hypothesis for you. What were you doing, Buddha?
I'm at the office, sir.
You are also at the office? My goodness. What are you doing at the office? Are you in Sri Lanka or in are you abroad?
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. My God. So you are working hard, isn't it? Or unless you are working in an outsourcing company where your foreign clients, you are matching the foreign clients' work schedules. Or are you in a place where there are a lot of workload, you have to work till late night? What's on the reality? Lot of work.
Yes.
Good. It's good. Working is good for health. So we reject the hypothesis. Earlier we made a hypothesis that Sandroni was engaged in something else, but now we have to reject that because the answer is that she's working. Isn't it? So that's how you confirm hypothesis or reject hypothesis. I'm going to tell you how you can use statistics to confirm or reject hypothesis, right, in the future. And we are just joking, Buddha. Don't take it serious. Okay. Thank you, Buddha. Thank you. Then we have Samara Singh. Samara Singh, what do you think is the answer? Singh, we have Samara Singh, number 16. Samara Singh. What might be Samara Singh doing? Shall we ask another person to make a hypothesis on what Samara Singh is doing at the moment? Samara Singh might be against in a washroom. Doing an activity they're not that cannot be declared in the public. How can you now test that hypothesis? Right? Maybe next week when Samara Singh physically meets us, we'll ask what she was or he was doing. Isn't it? Then we can exactly know what she is doing or he's doing. Okay. The answer is A. Answer is A. Why? Interviews, unstructured interviews, that's a data collection method. Postal survey questionnaires, that's another method that you can collect data. Participant observation, you look at the participants and you can collect data. But research questions is not a data collection method. Right? It's not a data collection method. Right. I think that's enough for today. We might not be able to do the today's lesson. But what I understood was that some people were very familiar. Some people were very familiar with the topic, but some people did not understand. And they were trying to give answers, but without knowledge, without the real knowledge. And some people were silent. Why is that? Why some people? You have to always think, you have to always ask yourself, why others could do that and why couldn't I do that? Then you will see that some others are doing things in a different way than you are doing things. Right? And then if your way that you do things is not working well, then immediately change the strategy, change the technique. If you change the technique, you'll be able to get the same result that the other people are getting. Right? Success could be replicated. Success could be replicated, repeated. If a person gets successful, you can also get that success by doing the steps as the other person has done. Right? Okay. So with that, we'll today go to today's topic. Right. So I think I just had a Q&A session that to do a small revision on what we had discussed on last week. Right? Okay. Now let's go to the LMS. I think we have already gone to the LMS. Have you already gone to the LMS? Yes. Right. So you can see, let's go to the LMS. Go to the LMS. And please download today lesson number 2. Please download lesson number 2, Research Designs. The designs. Okay, please download it. And we shall discuss 5 research designs today. There are 5 research designs, and I'll take you through what are the research designs. Right. Now, how many of you read the textbook? How many of you read the textbook, Buddha? How many of you read that? Now, Buddha, it's like this. It is where different things happen, isn't it? Now, drastically, some accidents could occur. This world is all full of accidents. People get killed. Then there are, floods, lightning. Last week I heard one guy got stricken by lightning. But different things happen. Different bad things happen sometimes. Now my question is this. Did someone accidentally read the textbook? වැරදිලා accident එකක් වගේ textbook එක read කරපු කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා. Accidentally. D. Silva, did you accidentally read the textbook for that?
No, sir, I couldn't.
You are a very honest person.
Thank you.
I really admire that. Very, very good. Always tell the truth. Even you might get blamed, you might get certain negative consequences. Honesty is the best policy. Always be truthful. I really admire that. Don't worry, don't worry. If you take part in these lectures, listen to the lectures carefully, then you can write the exam without even reading the textbook. I recommend reading that, but even without reading that, you will be able to write it. If you come to the lectures, listen to this and get notes, right? And follow the slides, right? Read the slides, right? Do your reading and listening, then you'll be able to pass the exam, right? Don't worry. But if you want to really get a good grade, an A or an A+, then reading the textbook is the way. Okay, right. Okay. So this is chapter number 3. Right, we discussed last week chapter number 1, and today we are discussing chapter number 3. We omit chapter number 2 because it's a little bit difficult for your level to understand. So, but I'm going to cover at the end certain important points of chapter number 2. Right. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss something called research designs. So first we'll define what's a research design, and afterwards we'll understand that there are 5 types of research designs. 5 types of research designs. We'll see what are those 5. Okay. We'll try to understand what are those 5. What are those 5 research designs? First, let's try to understand the difference between research design and a research method. Now read, what's the research design? So at the exam, you might be asked, differentiate between research design and research method. Right? Differentiate between research design and research method. So what's a research design? A research design provides a framework. So it's a framework for both data collection and analysis of data. So it's a comprehensive framework for data collection and analysis of data. Choice of the research designs reflect decisions about priorities given the dimensions of the research process. So in a research design, you will understand what's the research process the research is trying to follow. That is a research design. That is a research design. Then now let's see what's a research method. A research method is simply a technique for collecting data. Research method is what? It's a technique. That it explains a technique. It tells about a technique of collecting data. Choice of research methods reflects decisions about the type of instruments or techniques to be used. Instrument means, okay, whether it's a questionnaire, whether it's observation, or whether it's interview. So techniques like interviewing, observation, and questionnaires are called research methods. Now tell me, out of these 2, what is broad? What is broad? The may research designs or research methods filling broad part. What is broad?
Research design.
Good. Excellent. One student told it's research design. We'll ask another student whether he or she. Francisco, did you put? Do you put? I agree with that person.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Excellent. I think now my students are attentively listening, isn't it? If not, I might make unnecessary hypothesis. No. Making hypothesis then the room of the ahani. Good thing, no? That's my technique where I'm going to try to involve my good students to listen to the lecture. නැත්තම් මොකද කරන්නේ? අනිත් රටේ හැමතේම කරනවා අධ්‍යාපනය. If not, what some students they do is they do all other things except studies. So yes, very good. You are now attentive to listening, and my strategy worked. Yes, research design is more broader because it has both what? It's a broad framework of data collection as well as analysis. So when it comes to data collection, you will define in a research design your population, your sampling technique, everything will be there. And even how you're going to analyze is there in the research design. So it's much more broad. And you can see research method is a part of research design. Research method is part of research design. Is that clear, Buddha? Pavani Tevuna? Silva,
Yes.
did you understand?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Very good. So, right. Then we'll see criteria to see whether to distinguish between or among or between, in fact, good research from bad research. Right. Now, how can you distinguish between a good person and a bad person? There are certain things you will look at, isn't it? Whether this person steals, whether this person robs money from particularly the citizens of a country, whether this person kills people, murders people, robs people. Likewise, you will see whether a person consumes too much alcohol or any other drugs. Likewise, there might be certain criteria that you are going to look at. That's called what? The ways that you are going to see, that's the criteria that you could see to see whether something's good or bad. Right, give me a moment. Okay, students, can you hear me? Students, can you hear me, Buddha?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Buddha. I got an urgent call. I told that I'm busy and speak to me later. Right. So we'll see that, as I told you, that we can assess a person, whether a person is good or bad, depending on certain criteria, whether that person would rob, lie, consume alcohol, right, engage in unlawful sexual activity, whatever. Likewise, we can have certain criteria that can see whether a person is good or bad. Likewise, there are 3 criteria that you can use to evaluate social science research, social research. So these are the 3 criteria. At the exam, you might have a question like, explain the 3 criteria that you could use to evaluate social research. So what are the three criteria? First one is called reliability. Whether right, your instruments, whether your data collection instruments, data collection techniques are consistent, whether it would give consistent results, is called reliability. Now in day-to-day language, how do you call a reliable person? A reliable person is a consistent person, isn't it? Now, if there's a friend of yours, that says that that person will come at 9 a.m., right, on the next day, and turns up at 9 a.m., right, we can call him or her a reliable person. But on the other hand, let's say there's another friend who tells that he will come or she will come at 9 a.m., but comes at 9:30, 10 a.m., 10:30 p.m., or even 10:30 p.m., right? Right. And comes, you cannot trust that person. In that case, we could say that person is not a reliable person, because why? That person is not a consistent person. So remember, reliability is what? Reliability is about consistency, right? Whether the instrument, whether the data collection technique is giving similar answers, right? Now, say for an example, I'm going to give you a questionnaire and ask you at the beginning of the lecture whether you like this government, right? I'm going to ask you whether you like this government, a questionnaire at the beginning of the lecture, right? So let's say on average, you told that you hate this government, you don't like this government. Then at the end of the lecture, I again give the same question and ask you, what do you think about the government? Then let's say you are telling you absolutely love this government, right? You give the same question at the beginning and end. So within these 3 hours, nothing happened within the government, right? But again, you get completely different answers. So my question is, are you getting consistent answers out of this questionnaire that I gave you? Is the answers consistent? Answers consistent? Is it consistent? Pavani? D. Silva?
No, sir.
Zay?
No, sir.
Oh, oh. So then can we call that measurement tool or the questionnaire reliable? Something wrong with the questionnaire, isn't it? People are giving entirely wrong answers. Entirely wrong answers. Then, or inconsistent answers, then we call that the reliability is a problem. So that's the first criteria in social research. You should get consistent answers from the measurement tools, data collection techniques, particularly that you are using. That's called reliability, right? So second question is replicability. You can see the second criteria is replicability. Replication means whether you can repeat, whether you can repeat a study. Now let's say for an example, in Bangladesh, there was a study that had done about entrepreneurial satisfaction, or let's say accountant satisfaction, whether the accountants are satisfied or not, right? Particularly in audit firms. Now, there was one student who is even working at this moment, right? And we can ask whether that person is satisfied or not. Likewise, let's say it was done in Bangladesh. Now, can you repeat that study in Sri Lanka? What do you think? Now, a study was done in Bangladesh. And my question is, can you repeat the study in Sri Lanka? Can you use the same questionnaire? and ask here whether the accountants are happy or they are satisfied or not. Can or can't? You can, isn't it? You can repeat this stuff. Of course, with slight modification, but again, you can repeat. That's called replicability. Replicability. Scientific experiments should be able to replicate and get the almost same results. So that's called replication. Whether you can repeat a study. If you can repeat and get the same results or similar results, then there's a problem. It might not be a good research. Let's say, for an example, again, as I told you, at the beginning of the lecture, I gave you a questionnaire. And at the end, if I cannot give that questionnaire, and if my questionnaire is not given to you, or unable to be given to you, that's right, we cannot replicate that. On the other hand, I can give you a questionnaire of your student satisfaction at SAB. And I can take the same questionnaire and little bit slightly change the name of the organization and give it to Jayavardhanapur students. So that's replication. Replicability. Is a study repeatable? So first, whether it's consistent, then the second criteria is whether it's repeatable. The third criteria is, are the conclusions well-founded? Right? That's validity. Whether you get results, the results that you get is well-founded, which is based on true facts. That's called validity. That's called validity. Right. So I think you understood. There are three criteria that you could use to evaluate social research. One, reliability or the consistency. Whether you are getting the same results, right? You are going to use the same instrument, right? Of course, in a short period of time. In the long term, you might have different differences. That's correct. Reliability is that. Consistency. Whether your measures here means the instruments of data collection are consistent. Then number two, replication. Replication means whether you can repeat a study. But maybe you do a study in Jayavardhanapur University, can you repeat that in SAB? Yes, why not? You change the question, change only the institutional name and give the questionnaire. That's called replicability. Then validity is whether the conclusions, once you analyze the data, you might come into conclusions, are well-founded. And you trust them. That's called validity. Right? Reliability, replicability, and validity. So these are the three criteria, right, that you could find in good research. It's consistent, the results are consistent, right? It's replicable, repeatable, and the conclusions are valid. Okay? Is that clear, Buddha? So I discussed so far what's a research design, what's a research method, and the difference between those two. And then I just discussed, right, what are the three criteria that you use to distinguish between good and bad research in social research. Research could be repeatable if a research is consistent, if a research is valid. In that case, we call that research a good research. Okay. Clear, Buddha?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Very good. How about others? How about others? Clear?
Clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Right. Now we shall understand the 5 types of research designs. experimental, cross-sectional, longitudinal, case study, and comparative case study. So how many types are there? There are 5 types. Right? Experimental, cross-sectional, longitudinal, case study, and comparative case study. Now what we'll do is, we'll try to understand these 5 types using examples. Using examples. We'll take one by one and try to understand. The first type is known as experimental type. So you'll understand what scientists follow. The scientists follow the experimental type. Even testing COVID-19 vaccine, a vaccine for COVID-19, right? They did several types of research, but again, in one type of research, they did an experimental research as well. So I'll teach you today how that could be done. And you can do that in your organization also. So I'll take a simple example where you are trying to see whether a training program is effective or not. Whether a training program is effective or not, how to check that using an experimental design. I'm going to teach you next. So likewise, number 2, cross-sectional, number 3, longitudinal. Big names, but simple ideas are behind this, and I'll explain them to you. Right? Okay. So experimental design. So this is the example. A factory manager wants to know if a training program is effective or not in terms of increasing the knowledge of the factory workers. So this training program, now let's say there's a training program offered by a consultant, and the manager wants to know, factory manager wants to know whether that particular program is effective or not. So let's say in this factory, there are thousands of employees. Let's say there are 1,000 employees. Now, before training entire 1,000, the factory manager wants to know whether this particular training program is effective. So rather than checking the entire, trying to give the program for 1,000 employees, what he does is he tells the consultant to train 50 employees first. Can you see here? And he takes 50 employees out randomly out of these 1,000 and trains 50 employees. Now look at this very carefully. He takes 1,000 employees and trains 50 employees and calls that 50 employees the experimental group. Then he takes similar 50 another employees and keep it as control group. Control group means you don't train them. You keep it as a control group as a comparison. You give the training through the consultant teaches only these 50 employees. A similar group, another 50 is kept as a control. Right? So then he gives a pre-test. That means the consultant gives a pre-test where neither group is given training. Right? No group is given training and there's a pre-test. Pre-test means before the training, any group, he gives a test and you can see the experimental group, right? The experiment group got 57 on average. These 50 employees got 57 on average. The control group got 58 on average. What do you see? Almost the same, right? The experimental group was not given training and they got 57, and control group was not anyway given any training. So they got 58. Almost it's similar. But then what happens is the experiment group is given the training. But the control group is kept as control, not given any training. Only the experiment group is given training. Now what has happened? Then you give again a test and we call that a post-test. And now you can see the experimental group has got 85 on average. But the control group still, you again give that post-test, right? They still get 59 marks. So what's your conclusion? Is the training program effective?
Yes.
Is the training program effective? Training program is effective then.
Yes, sir.
Why do you say yes? You can see very well the experimental group jumped from 57 to 85 after training. But you can see the control group was not given any training. So there's no difference, 58 and 59. There's no significant difference. And also you can see, if you compare the post-test results itself, now that's between the pre-test and post-test, and if you even compare the post-test results, you will see 85 and 59 is substantially different. So your conclusion is this training program is effective. And what's your recommendation? The factory manager could use the consultant to do what? To train all 1,000 employees. 1,000 employees could be trained. But because it's effective. So likewise, this is what scientists do. In COVID-19 experiments, what they did was, they took two groups of people, and with the permission of the patients, they injected COVID-19, right, a mild version, and they gave the real drug to one set of patients, and then they did not give the real drug. They gave a similar version, we could call placebos, right? And they checked, right, whether there's a difference in symptoms. So that's the experimental design. So scientists follow the experimental design. Okay. Is that clear, Buddha?
Sir, if you don't mind, sir, if you don't mind, can you please explain the difference between this experiment group and control group?
Very good. Experiment group, Buddha, these are only two names. These are only two names. You get 50 and you call one group experiment and the other 50 as control. This experiment means that you are giving the training group. Experiment කියලා කියන පුතා අපි නම් දෙකක් පමණ. ඒකට නම් දෙකක් A and B, like you give A and group B. Likewise, these are two names. The difference is පුතා, for the experiment group, you give the training. Training එක දෙනවා experiment කියන group එකට. Control group එක control purpose එකට විතරයි තියන්නේ. ඒකේ පුතා මොනවත් එහෙම training එකක් දෙන්නේ නැහැ. That's the difference. A good question.
So sir, in a post-test result, that means the feedback from the employees, right? Post-test results means?
No. You are giving a test. We pre-test කියලා කියන පුතා exam දෙකක්. Pre-test කියලා කියන්නේ exam එකක් දෙනවා. Group දෙකටම training දෙන්නේ නැතුව, group දෙකටම training, experiment group එකට training දෙන්නේ නැහැ, control group එකටත් දෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? Training එක දෙන්න කලින් දෙනවා group දෙකටම exam එක. එතකොට 57 average ගන්න පුතා. Experiment group එක 57ක් ගන්නවා, control group එක 58ක් ගන්නවා. ඊට පස්සේ මොකද කරන්නේ? Experiment කියන group එකට පුතා training එක දෙනවා. You give the training. But control group එක පුතා මොනවද දෙන්නේ නැහැ. You don't give any training. Right? Training දෙන්න. ඊට පස්සේ ආයෙත් exam එක දෙනවා. Post test කියන්නේ ඒක. Post කියලා කියන්නේ training එකට පස්සේ වෙන එක.
Again sir, මේක නිකන් marks වගේ නේ.
මේ marks තියෙන්නේ. මේ test එකේ marks. ඒ කියන්නේ ඇත්තටම මේ exam marks මේ තියෙන්නේ. Training කරන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා, training කරන්න පස්සේ. හැබැයි training කරන්නේ experiment group එක විතරයි. ඉතින් බලන්න පුතා ඇත්තටම control group එක පුතා training දුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක නිසා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ pre-test result එක 58යි. Right? Post-test result එක 59යි. වෙනසක් නැහැ. නමුත් බලන්න experiment group එක average එක 57යි 50 දෙනාගේ. pre-test එක ඒ කියන්නේ training දෙන්න කලින්. now post-test එක බලන්න පුතා ඒක වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා 85කට. මොකක්ද එන training program එක ගැන කියන්න තියෙන්නේ? හොඳයිද ඒක? Is it good?
Success. Yes, experiment.
Success. Good question, Puta. You clarified that. Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. Because this is what you can also implement in your organizations. මුගේ ආයතනවලත් පුතා මේ වගේ එක්ස්පෙරිමන්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන්. right similar employees ලා කාණ්ඩයක් අරගෙන ට්‍රේනින් එක දෙනවා. අනිත් කාණ්ඩයට දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ බලනවා ට්‍රේනින් එක දීපු කාණ්ඩය හොඳට perform කරනවා. අනිත් කට්ටියට සාපේක්ෂව. Comparatively whether the trained groups are doing better than the untrained groups. This is called experimental design. Right? So what did you do? In experimental design, you randomly assign people to subjects to experimental and control groups. Randomly තමයි ගත්තේ අර 10. They are without any preference. The preference කරපුවම පුතා වයස් වෙනවනේ. Therefore what you do is you randomly take people into these two groups. Let's say group A and group B. Then what you did was you gave the pre-test. Right? You gave the exam right before you give any training. Then independent variable manipulator. What's the independent variable? Their knowledge. The experimental group was given the training. That's the independent variable. Then what you did was only for the experimental group. Then what you did was you post-tested both groups. You again gave an exam, another exam to both groups, the trained group as well as untrained group, the experiment group and the control group, and you compare the differences. So yes, the early example, these are the differences. Experimental group which were trained got 85 marks, but the control group got only 59 marks on average. So you concluded the training program is effective. Right? So that's what. So this is called first design, which is experimental design. Is that clear, Buddha? Experimental design?
Yes, sir.
Very good. We'll ask other students. We have 35 students. We'll ask Tavatam. Piris. Number 7, Piris. Is it clear, Buddha?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Pereira. Is it clear, Buddha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good, Miss Pereira. Excellent, excellent. Other one. Clear? සඳරුවනේ නේද අර වැඩ කරනවා කියන්නේ. Then Karunase. Pushpika. Pushpika. Pushpika, is it clear then?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear.
Very nice, very nice. Right. Okay, Buddha. So we'll discuss then next the cross-sectional design. We'll discuss the cross-sectional design after a break. Shall we take a 15-minute break, Buddha? And meet at 8:15
Sir,
in Sri Lanka
hello.
time? Yes, Buddha. Yes.
Sir, I have
Hello.
a small question.
Of course,
Hello.
you can ask me any question. Yes, Buddha.
Sir, experimental and control group have same number of members. Need always the same
Better.
group.
Better, Buddha. Better to have the same number. But if there's a slight difference, Buddha, no problem. Because why? You are taking the average. No? Here this 57 is average of, now let's say the control group, Buddha, they have a 49. But then what you are doing, you are taking the average. Yes, you are taking the average Buddha marks. Therefore, no problem. If it is a little bit different, there's no problem. Exactly over 50-50 only. Good question.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Very good question. Thank you, Buddha. How about others? Any questions? Questions, concerns?
Sir, I have one question.
Of course, ask me that. Ask me.
Yeah. Sir, can we do a research on a topic where research is done already for that topic, sir?
It's like this, Puta. It depends on, now let's say for an example, if the research is done in a different country, but not yet done in Sri Lanka, then you can do that. Now let's say for an example, Puta, it's done in America. America research right? Let's say construction workers drug usage. Whether construction workers use drugs in America. But let's say in Sri Lanka, it's not yet done. And you can check that within Sri Lanka, we have a similar problem. Or are there any differences between the American study and Sri Lankan construction workers? Because in Sri Lanka, Puta, we might not be using the same drugs. America, you might have weed, or might have even some other things that I don't know tell you. But here in Sri Lanka, you have different other items. No, you have cage, you have asip. Likewise, likewise, you can see the difference. You can do the same study, but you might sometimes get drastic differences in the results.
We'll say, sir, someone like did a research and they like gain a conclusion, but we as a person, we want to do a research on that same topic, since we are not satisfied with the conclusion which is given by the previous person. In that case,
why not? Why not, Puta? Then if you are not satisfied, now let's say, Puta, in 2000, let's say 18, a study was done. Right, in 2018. A study was done on maybe, I don't know, employee satisfaction. Right? And now, can you depend on the result of that study now?
No.
Now, this 2023. No, things have changed. So you might need to do it again. Because now 5 years or 4 years or 5 years have gone, a lot of things have changed. The government has changed. The tax has changed. Income tax rates have changed. And you can see a lot of things have changed. So in that case, yes, if you are not satisfied, the time has changed, the things have changed. Then Puta, you can do the same study in the same environment. But on the other hand, Puta, if a study is already done, let's say in 2023, a person does a study, right, by taking a good sample, a representative sample, and get a result. Then there's no meaning, Puta, doing it again by you, because it's already done in a good way. ඒකට කරන එකේ තේරුමක් නැහැ.
Hi, sir.
එතකොටත් ඔයාලට හිතෙනවා නම් පුතා සාම්පල් එක හරිය නැහැ. බොරුව කරලා තියෙන්නේ. එක එක දේවල් කරලා තියෙනවා. Then you can see whether you are going to do it or not. Some studies are bogus studies.
Yes.
So in that case, if you are not satisfied, then you can try to do it better.
Okay, sir. Okay, understood. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dayan. Very good question. Okay. Right, Puta? So any other questions? If you want to have questions, then we'll take a break. Puta, now we shall meet at 2020. 15 minutes from now. Our time is set up, right? We shall Sri Lanka time, right? Sri Lanka time, 8:20, we'll meet. Okay. So let's have a small break. students, can you hear me, Buddha?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent, Dan. Thank you very much. So here now we discussed about the experimental design. I told you that there are 5 research designs, right? What are the 5 research designs? Yeah, experimental design. Then you have the cross-sectional design. Now let's discuss what is a cross-sectional design, right? Cross-sectional design. So read, a cross-sectional design entails or involves the collection of data on more than one case, usually quite a lot of more than one, and at a single point of time, in order to collect a body of quantitative or qualitative information. What it simply means is, in simple English, right, you get data at one point of time from several individuals. Let's take an example. Let's say I give a questionnaire to you all. How many students are there in the class? How many students are there? You have 32 students. You have 32 students. Let's say I give a questionnaire to you now, and I ask about your satisfaction related to the government. But I get 32 responses. We call that kind of research is cross-sectional. Why? You get at one point of time several responses. That's called cross-sectional. Cross-sectional means at one point of time. At one point of time, you get the data. That's called cross-sectional design. Survey research like this, survey means this questionnaire-based research is usually cross-sectional. You give a questionnaire and you get data at one point of time. Right now, say for an example, the T1 is now. Let's say T1, you give the questionnaire and you get several responses. You get from case 1, these are the students, different students could be there, and you can get different observations. Right? Cross-sectional design. This is one of the most common designs that researchers use. They give a questionnaire and they get data. Right? This is called cross-sectional design. So what you have to understand is, here, is there an experiment? No. In an experiment, you have a control group, an experimental group, and what you do is you give the training or whatever the intervention to the experimental group, and then you compare the results. In cross-sectional, you don't do that. You give the questionnaire to a set of people at one point of time. So that's why it's called a cross-sectional design. Is that clear, Buddha? This has to be contrasted with the next type of design, which is known as longitudinal design. Longitudinal design. What do you mean by longitudinal design? You take data at different points of time. Survey the same sample on more than one occasion. Let's say, for an example, I give you the questionnaire about the government now, and I give again the same questionnaire after 1 year time. That's called longitudinal. Because you have taken data at different points of time, maybe after another 1 year. Likewise, you might be taking yearly data and for several years, and you'll be able to get data. Right? That's called longitudinal design. If I show you that you see this particular T1, now you can see this is T1, you get the data, and then again you get Tn or T2 in some other time. And sometimes you can get this data for 50 years. Right? For 50 years, every year, I'm going to ask the same people, what you think about your life? What you think about your success? That's called longitudinal design. Now, what's the difference between cross-sectional and longitudinal? In longitudinal design, you take data from the same sample at different points of time. At different points of time, right? But if you see cross-sectional design, you take at one point of time. Okay. Now, what's the difference between?
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes, yes.
So same sample means a sample size, right?
No, same sample. Now, if I'm going to get from Diane, right? So from this year, I'm going to get from Diane. Let's say now, say for an example, Puta, now I'm using this class as the example. So here, Puta, there are 33 students, right? So again, next year, Puta, I'm going to get data from the same 33 students.
Okay.
That's a වැඩක් නෑනේ පුතා.
Oh.
වාගේ අදහස් මාරු වෙච්ච විදිය දැන් ගවර්න්මන්ට් එක ගැන හිතන විදිය සක්සස් එක වාගේ ජීවිතය ගැන හිතන විදිය මේ SAP ඩිග්‍රී ගැන හිතන විදිය පුතා වෙන කට්ටියකින් අහලා වැඩක් නෑනේ. වාගේම තමයි අහන්නේ. දැන් වාට දැන් අවුරුදු 5කින් පස්සේ මම ඇහුවොත් ඩිග්‍රී ගැන මොකක්ද හිතන්නේ කියලා. එතකොට වා කියන දේ තමයි මට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. ඊට අවුරුදු 10කින් පස්සේ වාගේම තමයි අහන්නේ. පැහැදිලිද? So I'm going to ask the same person year by year, or 5 years time, 10 years time, I'm going to ask the same person. If not, no point. So likewise, I'm going to ask a group of people, same people. Good question. Very good question, brother. Right. So how about others? Now I have taught you 3 designs. What are 3 designs? Cross-section, the experimental design, cross-sectional design, and the longitudinal design.
Excuse me, sir. One little question.
Yes, Vata.
In this longitudinal design, at which point we are getting into the conclusions? I mean, if there is...
it's like now, let's say, Puta, at the current moment, let's say you are monitoring every year's time, and the conclusion can be taken at the current moment, Puta, up to the data you have collected up to the point. Do you understand? අද තමයි පුතා conclusion එක ගන්න. දැන් ආයෙත් අවුරුද්දකින් ගන්නවා නම් ඒතකොට තමයි පුතා ඊළඟ conclusion එක. So at the most current or updated time that you are going to make your conclusions, but it will change puta in time to come. Because it's a long, let's say if your study was for 50 years, then end of 50 years is the real time that you are going to make the conclusion. So some studies are like they do it for 20 years, 30 years, and they see how the things have changed. So at the end of the 20th year, you are going to make the conclusion. But the interim conclusions can be made, Puta, at the end of the current period. Very good question.
Okay, thank you.
Very nice question, De Silva. But I got very good questions from Diane as well as from De Silva. How about others? Fernando, any questions? 21. Pushpika. Deep. How things are? Deep. Herrera. Yeah, we are the students. What are they doing?
Excuse me, sir.
Maybe yes.
Sir, can we say that the cross-sectional design and the longitudinal one, the cross-sectional design, the cross-sectional one is a one-time research, and the longitudinal one a repetitive one?
Indeed. Yes, indeed. Continuously you are doing that. Right. So that you are doing several cross-sections.
Yeah, then the cross section also the conclusion we take at at one time. Then the longitudinal one we take conclusions by year, or month by month. We take the conclusion
Exactly.
month continuously, right, sir?
Exactly. And see how things have changed over the time.
Right.
අන්තිමට පුතා බලන්නේ දේවල් කොහොමද වෙනස් වුනේ කාල සීමාව තුළ. In cross section පුතා you cannot see that. You are going to take at one point of time and you make the conclusion. The cross sectional design පුතා sorry, in the longitudinal design you'll be able, in a cross sectional design you are taking at one point of time. In the longitudinal one you can see how things have changed over the time, which cannot be done under the cross sectional design.
Thank
ඒක
you.
කරන්න cross sectional design. Very good question.
Thank you, sir.
So if you want to see the trend of something, how things have changed, how people's attitudes have changed related to government, related to degree program, related to life success, you can use the longitudinal design. Okay. Good question. Excellent question. How about others? So do ask questions, because that's the whole idea. Because not I could have recorded this lecture and put that into the LMS and you could have watched that. So why we are having this as a live lecture? Why is that? Because to allow you to ask questions, engage. Because sometimes, Puta, you might think, no, I'm going to listen to this again. Now there are 61 students in this class. But see, only 34 people are there. Only 34 people are there. Are all really busy? No, it's not. They are not really busy. Right? It's all depends on the commitment as well as the seriousness that you have taken. Okay, so for good things, be serious. Bad things, don't be serious and don't waste your time. Okay, so that's my kind advice to you all. Right. So now let's come to the third type of design. That's actually the fourth type of design. That's called a case study design. Case study design. Here what you do is you take one case, a single case, and study that case in depth. Now say for an example, I want to see why JKH is a very successful company. Right? I want to see why JKH is an extremely successful company. So what I do is I take only JKH and study in depth. I study that in depth, meaning I'm going to go and question them. I'm going to go and interview them. I'm going to give them questionnaires. I'm going to look at their documents. Likewise, you are going to in-depth study, deep study. And you see why JKH is so successful. Even during COVID-19, they were really successful. They made profits and they made good. Why? So that's called a case study design. So in a case study, what you do is detailed and intensive analysis of one case. Or maybe you might get 2 or 3 cases, but it's very limited. Now in a cross-sectional design, you might take at least 100 participants, give a questionnaire to 100 people and do your analysis. But in a case study, you use one case. You use one case, right? And you study in depth. This is done by qualitative research mainly, right? Qualitative research. That means basically inductive research. Inductive research, you take one case and you study in depth, right? Qualitative research. So that's what you do in a case study design, right? But what's the main issue in case study design in that case? Can you compare the result with some other company? And once you find out why JKH is successful, is it comparable with, can you compare that with another company? Can or can't? You can't. Why? JKH is a unique case. JKH is a unique case. So therefore, replication, repeatability is not there in case study result. Because each company, each individual, each person, each family is different from other families, other persons, other companies. Right? So there is a small issue related to case study because related to inability to replicate. Because there's only one JKH in this world. So you can replicate the study somewhere else. So that's case study design. And the final design, design number 5, is comparative design. Comparative design means you take 2 case studies and you compare. In earlier case study design, you took only 1 case. Now what you do is you take 2 case studies and you compare. Maybe you take a successful company and you might compare with an unsuccessful company. Right? Success and unsuccess. You will take Srilanka group, right? And you might take JKH. Srilanka is not unsuccessful, but again, not that successful like JKH. So you can compare. You can see a well-performing company and not so well-performing company. And you can compare what has happened. So we call that comparative design. Comparative design. Right here, comparative design, you take one case and compare it with another case or other cases. That's called comparative design. Is that clear?
Excuse me, sir.
Indeed, yes, Puta.
Sir, what can be the output of a comparative design? In the sense, what are we going to expect by comparing?
Very good, Puta. Now let's take for an example, Puta. Let's take this one. You take Singapore and you take Sri Lanka at the moment. Right? You take 2 countries and you compare them. What can you get out of that? You can learn, Puta, a lot of things. You can see how or what are the ways that you should not run a country. You should see what type of politicians we require for a country. Likewise, Puta, we can learn very good lessons out of a comparative design. What makes success? What makes unsuccess? You can study. Right? Why you can see Singapore developed now in 1960s, Puta. Sri Lanka was much developed in terms of economic development. Sri Lanka was much higher than Singapore. Today is the other way around. Sri Lanka was officially declared a bankrupt country. And even now, we are in a dire situation. We are in a significant problematic situation. But Singapore is prospering. So you can see why. Why Singapore prospered compared to Sri Lanka. Why JKH prospered? Now during COVID-19, all companies were making losses. Some companies went out of business and a lot of other issues were there. But in the same environment, why JKH prospered? So one of the reasons when we did a study related to JKH, what we saw was it has the best governance practices. It's one of the companies who there are other companies, of course, but again, it's one of the companies that has the best governance practices. But when we see failed companies, like it's not directly comparable, but like the finance, then ETI finance, likewise, we have different companies which failed. We see that their corporate governance situation is very poor. So likewise, Buddha, in a comparative design, you can learn lessons. What makes success? What makes unsuccess? Why this company progresses? Why this company degresses? Likewise, you can compare. So you can take even 2 students and do a comparative case study design. You can take a more successful student and you can take a least successful student, an unsuccessful student, and you can compare and study and gain a lot of insights how to be successful. What the point, brother?
Yes, sir. Another thing, now when we are selecting the two case studies, both of them should have the same kind of conditions, no, in order to compare.
Yeah. If not, Puta, that's going to be a problem. Now, for an example, Puta, that's why now you cannot compare JKH and you cannot compare Puta, maybe the finance. Because those are in total different things. And JKH has several Puta subsidiaries. So maybe if you really want to compare, then you have to compare JKH subsidiary in the same industry with that unsuccessful company. And then you can do this. The comparison must be similar or reasonable. Now, say for an example, if I'm going to compare two students, I have to select a student who's coming from the same background, same age, same district, that same subject stream, and see why a student is so successful and unsuccessful. Now, let's say for an example, if I'm going to take you as my example and compare two students, why a student is very successful and unsuccessful, I need to take similar backgrounds, students who are coming from similar backgrounds, similar age, similar gender, similar other things, and see why this person is so successful compared to the other person who has similar circumstances, but is not successful as the successful student. Yes, it needs to be comparable. You cannot compare with apples with oranges or coconuts with mangoes. It has to be comparable. Indeed, yes. At least the same industry, at least the same size, right? If you're going to compare two companies.
Got it, sir.
Good
Thank
question.
you.
Good question, Pata. If not, it's not reasonable to compare. Thank you, Pata. How about others? This is the comparative design. So you can see, Pata, there are 5 designs. Right? What are the 5 designs? The first design that we discussed was what? The experimental design. Second one, cross-sectional design. Then third one, what's the third one? What about the third one? Longitudinal design. Fourth one, case study design. Fifth one, comparative case study design. Very good. Right. Okay. Any questions? Questions, concerns? There none. Okay. Now I'm going to ask a simple question from you. Right? Out of these, in terms of replication, what's the most easiest study to replicate? Study design to replicate. Hey, designs, the Bhag Katha Karani, we discussed 5 designs. What's the design that you can easily replicate? What's the design that you can easily replicate? Repeat.
Cross-sectional one.
Okay, one student says cross-section.
Longitudinal.
Longitudinal ke okay. So we'll ask, we have Arachi. Arachi, what do you think? What's easiest to replicate? Repeat.
I think so. It's a case study.
Case study, okay. Right. How about D. Silva? Silva
Cross-sectional one, sir. I have answered, sir.
You answered that. No? Sorry for that. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Very good. Then Francisco.
Third one's a longitudinal.
Longitudinal one. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for all who answered. Right. Thank you, Buddha. Thank you, Francisco. But actually, the most easiest one is the cross-sectional one. Because why? It's what? Now, if I want to do a study, replication, let me repeat, I just need to change the name. Now, say for an example, I want to see the student satisfaction of SAB. And I prepare a questionnaire for SAB students, get the data, right? And I could do the research. Then let's say I'm going to do the same thing for Jayawardhan. The only thing I have to change is the name of the institution. I can give the same questionnaire, only to change the name and get the data. And then I could do the research. So therefore, remember, Bhutan, out of these 5, the most easiest one is the cross-sectional design. Okay. So on the other hand, what's the study that will give some robust results? Robust one. You can get, particularly if you want to see the impact of a drug, if you want to see the impact of a training program, what design would be much better? Training program එක වගේ නැත්නම් drug එක පුතා effectiveness එක බලන්න මොකද්ද හොඳ design එක? What's the design that's more suitable?
Experimental.
Excellent. Absolutely, Pavani. Experimental design. That's why it's called experimental, isn't it, after all? Right? So in these designs, right, the experimental design is that will establish, right, the causality. What? Causality. So let me now tell you a little bit about causality. Right? Causality. So let me take a next slide and explain that to you. So what do we mean causality? This is not casual, right? This is causal. Causality is based on cause and effect. Cause leads to effect, isn't it? Now, for an example, cause and effect. Now, let's say for an example, you study hard. Study well. What will be the effect? What happens to your grades? Higher grades. So this is called causality. Now, on the other hand, if you exercise well, physical exercise, then what happens to your health? Better health. This is called causality. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. Now, my question is, in cross-sectional design, can you check the cause and effect? Causality ka බලන්න පුළුවන්. Cross-sectional design. Can or can't? In fact, you can't. Why? Because you take data at one point of time. So you cannot check cause and effect. In which design, Puta, you can check the cause and effect very well. In which design?
Longitudinal.
You can check the. Okay, longitudinal. Okay. Okay, nice attempt, Puta. How about others?
I think
Mono
it's
design. Indeed. Experimental design. Yes, in longitudinal also to a certain extent, better than cross-sectional, I do agree. Better than cross-sectional, you can get, you can see what happened over the time. But the best way to check cause and effect, right, is the experimental design. Now in the earlier one, the cause is what? What's the cause? Training program. What's the effect? Marks. So you can very well see how the training program impacts marks, how the training program affects marks. So that's why we call it the best design to check the causality is the experimental design. So you can take down the experimental design is the best to establish the causality. The least effective one is cross-sectional design because you take the data at one point of time. How can you establish causality? But people do that, but again, there are issues. Okay. Understood. Right. Now, finally, let me tell what's ontology and what's epistemology. Right? Don't worry. You might think these are two things that you might consume for your dinner. Right? No. Big words, but small thing. We'll see what's ontology. Let me put it to focus. Read what's ontology. Ontology is a branch of metaphysics, right? That is concerned with identifying, in the most general terms, what kind of things that actually exist. Or it's about existence. For an example, an ontological question might be, is God there? Is there a God? Right? An ontological question might be, what happens to us when we die? So it's about existence. If we ask the question whether God exists, it's an ontological question. So ontology means, right, something to do with existence. Keep that in mind. But then we see epistemology. Epistemology means how you would know that something exists. Right? That's the nature of knowledge. How do we go about knowing things? So therefore, in summary, what you have to just remember is ontology is about what is true or not true. And epistemology is the methods of figuring out that truth. Right? Now, say for an example, let's say that I'll take an example which really happened in Sri Lanka. Right? So there is a disease called CKDU. There's a disease called CKDU. So what it means is chronic kidney disease. It's particularly found in certain agricultural areas like Polonnaruwa and other places. It's there. Right? So if I ask this question, if CKDU exists, then it's an ontological question. It's about existence. No, ontology means existence. Matha Ontology means existence. Epistemology means how you are going to know about them, right? So what are the reasons or what causes CKD? Right? CKD එක තියෙනවද නැද්ද කියන කාරණේ තමයි ontology එකෙන් කරන්නේ. So people established, yes, there is CKDU. But then the problem is, how do you know that's there? What are the causes of CKD? Right? Right? Particularly the causes. How do you get to know things? Right? Different ways are there to get to know things. Now there was one scientist who told, right, in a news conference, that CKDU, right, he know the cause for that. Right? Then the journalist asked him, how did you know that? How did you know that that's the reason? So journalists ask what? An ontological question or an epistemological question? Then මේ scientist කිව්වා CKD එකේ තියෙනවා. Right? CKD is there. So it's about existence. No, he told it exists. So it's an ontological thing that he told. Then he also told he knows the reason why it exists. Right? So that's an epistemological statement he did. He was telling how he knew that it existed as well as it caused it. Because there's no one way it could cause, and still scientists do not know 100% why this CKD occurs in pollen or in other areas. There are different reasons given. So this man was telling, this scientist was telling, that he knows the reason for why that particular disease occurs. And he even told the answer for that. Then the journalist asked him, right, how did you know about that? How did you get to know about it? So they are asking what? An ontological question or an epistemological question? කොහොමද දැනගත්තේ කියලා අහන්නේ. එතකොට ඒක ontology epistemology. තියෙනවද නැද්ද කියන්නේ ontology. Right? යමක් තියෙනවද නැද්ද කියන එක ගැන අහන්නේ ontological question. If you're asking something exists or not, it's an ontological question. Then how you know about it? How you got to know that it exists or not is a different thing. That's called an epistemological question. So he told that he knows that everyone knows now CKD is there, but no one knows what's the reason. So he was telling now he knows the reason. He knows the reason. Then the scientist asked, and he even gave the reason. And then the scientist asked, how did you know about that? So they were expecting this person did a huge experiment or several experiments and got to know the answer. But you know what he told to the journalist? Anyone can tell what he told? This scientist was telling that he got to know that particular knowledge through what? Through Lord Nath. Nath දෙවියෝ තමයි මනුස්සයට කියලා. So Lord Nath has told him that this is the reason that this particular disease occurs. So what about his epistemology? Is it scientific or non-scientific? Completely non-scientific. And that scientist is there with us. And I'm not going to tell you for obvious reasons. His name, I think you know whom I'm speaking of. So what you can see is, what you can understand is, knowledge could be obtained in different ways. The correct ways as well as not so correct ways. Right? So that's about epistemology. So why I'm teaching you this? Why I'm teaching you this is to distinguish between two research traditions, two research paradigms. Right? මේක කියලා දෙන්නේ paradigms දෙකක් අතර වෙනස research paradigms දෙකක් අතර කියයි. Now tell me how many religions are there among us? අප අතරේ කොච්චර religions තියෙනවද? There are 4 mainstream religions. What are the four mainstream religions? Buddhists are there, Christians and Catholics are there. Then we have Hindus are there. Then Muslims are there likewise. These are different races that are there. Buddhism, Christianity, Catholicism, then we have Hinduism, Islam likewise. We have 4 mainstream religions and a lot of other variants. Likewise, when it comes to research, අපි අතරේ එක එක ආගම් තියෙනවා වගේ research ගත්තොත් ඒකෙත් researchersලා හිතන පතන විදිය අනුව ප්‍රධාන classes දෙකක් තියෙනවා. There are 2 kinds of researchers in this world. There are 2 kinds of researchers in this world. One is called positivistic researchers. One is called positivistic researchers, or we can call them positivism. Then the other type of researchers are called interpretivism researchers or interpretivistic researchers. Right? Like we have 4 religions in this world, the researchers also believe in 2 research traditions, paradigms. Paradigms කියලා කියන්නේ ඒ වගේ traditions දෙකක්. There are 2 mainstream paradigms. What are those? Positivistic researchers and interpretivistic researchers. Like we have people who follow different religions. When it comes to research, there are 2 classes of people, 2 classes of researchers. One is called positivism-based researchers, and the other one is called interpretivism-based researchers. So I told you earlier ontology. When it comes to ontology, it's about nature of the reality, nature of knowledge, right? Particular nature of reality or the existence of reality. Existence. Ontology is existence. The positivistic researchers believe that only one reality exists. Only one reality exists. Positivistic researchers. They believe only one reality exists. But interpretivist researchers believe there are multiple realities. There are multiple realities. There is no only one reality. Now let you give me an example. Now if you take religions like Christianity and Islam, how many gods are there over there? They believe in how many gods? Any Muslims, any Christians? They believe in one God. But if you see Buddhists, how many gods they do believe? Buddhists la kochchar gods la believe karnawa? Are there any Buddhists in this lecture? Class එකේ Buddhists la ඉන්නවද? More ඉන්නවා. We have Muslims, we have Hindus, there's Christians, Catholics, and Muslims. So in Buddhism, how many gods are there? 33 කෝටියක්. You have several millions of gods. See the difference, right? How people assume things. I'm not going to say what's correct or wrong. What I'm saying, these are different belief systems. Paradigms are like that. Here, positivistic researchers, the first class of researchers, they believe there's only one objective reality. Then interpretivistic researchers think that there are multiple realities. There's not only one reality. There are multiple realities. Right? එකම දේ දිහා බලන්න පුළුවන් විවිධ ක්‍රම තියෙනවා කියලා interpretivist researchersලා හිතනවා. They could think the same thing. Now let's take for an example, if we take Facebook. The positivistic researchers will say Facebook is good. That's it. But interpretivistic researchers will say there are different perceptions about Facebook. Different people will say different. You see, The same thing could be told in different ways, right? Looked at different ways. Now, let's say for an example, let's take drinking alcohol or consuming alcohol. Is it good or bad? Right? In certain religions, it will say it's bad. That's all. But in certain other places, it would say it's okay. See, multiple realities, isn't it? People believe in multiple realities. So that's where interpretation comes. They believe in, right? Subjective reality is constructed. People construct reality. It's subjective, and there are multiple realities. So that's how interpretation is exactly opposite. Positivistic people think that there's only one objective reality. But interpretatives think, no, we have to interpret the reality. Different people, different societies interpret the reality differently. Right? Some societies think that eating pork is wrong. But in other societies, they would think, no, it's okay. Now see how different societies interpret the same thing. So that's why we call it interpretivism. So just understand that there are two classes of researchers, two types of researchers. One type of researchers, they think there's one objective reality that could be measured tangibly and tested, right? Clearly. But then we have interpretivistic researchers who think, no, there are multiple realities, but the same thing is looked at in different ways in different societies. So the reality is subjective. It's constructed by the people, and there are multiple realities there. Right? So that's the difference between positivism and interpretivism. Then nature of knowledge. That's epistemology. How you get to know about the knowledge. Positivistic researchers think, yes, you can know the knowledge by being outside. So the researcher and the research are two different things. And you could check what's the reality objective. But on the other hand, interpretive researchers think the research and the researcher are not independent. It's the same. The person will have to get into the research and get to know. Right? So that's about the nature of knowledge. So the researcher and the research becomes the same and involved. Right? Okay. So if I ask this question, what would a scientist follow? Positivism or interpretivism? A medical scientist කෙනෙක් මේ tradition දෙකෙන් මොකක්ද use කරනවා ඇත්තේ? If you take a medical scientist, what tradition, what paradigm would he or she use? Positivism or interpretivism? A medical scientist. Medical scientist කෙනෙක් මොන වගේ tradition එකක්ද use කරන්නේ? මොන වගේ ආගමක්ද research පැත්තෙන් අදහන්නේ? Positivism ද interpretivism? A medical scientist. Money. Silva. What kind of tradition?
Sir, can
medical
it be
science.
positivism?
Of course. Because they believe in one objective reality, and the research and the researcher are two different things. They don't get involved. Right? But on the other hand, a social scientist, what kind of tradition that person would use? A social scientist. Probably interpretive research. Because a social scientist will see the same thing in different societies is interpreted in different ways. Now, let's say eating alcohol, eating pork, right? If you go to Saudi Arabia or some other Islamic country, it's outright prohibited. But in Sri Lanka, people do consume that. So see, the same thing interpreted in different ways. So the social scientist will see, yeah, it's different, isn't it? Same thing in different ways. And also the researcher and the researcher becomes involved. Now, what do you mean by that? So with that, I will conclude. So let me tell you a small story. I think you have heard about a social scientist called Professor Nandasena Ratnapal. Have you heard about him? Because he's popular for one type of research, because of one research study. What's that? Can anyone tell me? What did he study? He studied about a very important social class in Sri Lanka, a social segment. What's the social segment? Sir? Very good. Beggars. He studied about beggars, panhandlers, these homeless guys in the streets. So he studied about beggars. Very good. Not about politicians. Then he should have studied then about thieves, robbers, thugs, criminals, isn't it? But he studied about beggars. Now, he was not a positivistic researcher because he was a social science researcher. So when he wanted to know about beggars, what did he do? Did he ask the beggars to come to? He was a researcher in the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. So did he ask him to come to Jayawardhanapura University, all the beggars, sit, and then give them a question in English language, ask them to fill it, and took the responses? Did he do that?
No, sir.
No, he did not do that. Right? So that's the way a positivistic researcher would do. Right? But what he did was he became part of the research. He became part of the research. What did he do? He disguised him. Right? He disguised himself as a beggar. Then he started begging in the roads of Sri Lanka, the Colombo area specifically. So you can see the knower and known are interacting. What it means is the research and the researcher, right, is interacting. He became part of the research. He became part of the research, and he did not become a beggar, but he disguised himself and he was begging with other beggars. See, the research and the research became interacted. They became the same. Right. And he understood by begging with the beggars, he understood their secret codes, their customs, their norms, and beggar mudalaris. Who are these beggar mudalaris? Likewise, he understood a lot of other information. He never could have taken that information from giving a questionnaire and being detached from the research. He became part of the research. So to get the knowledge, that's what he used under interpretivistic research tradition. Even once, he was begging in front of University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, right? Even his wife could not recognize him. But only one person or one thing recognized him. Who's that? එච්චරටම ඩිස්කස් කරලා. right? ඔන්න යුනිවර්සිටි එක ඉස්සරහා ජපුරු යුනිවර්සිටි ඉස්සරහා යා හිගමන් අදිනවා. right? He was begging. වයිෆුත් රුපියලක් දීලා ගිහිල්ලා. වයිෆුත් රුපියලක් දීලා ගියා. She was also a lecturer. Right? She also gave him 1 rupee, and those days 1 rupee is a large amount. And she between Israel. But only one thing could identify that was Professor Nandaseena Ratnapala in disguise. Who is that?
Pet dog.
Who is that? Ah, very good. His dog. Actually, Buddha, he was used to feed dogs, stray dogs in Jaipur University, right? And one of the dogs that he fed identified him. His wife could not, but the dog identified him. Because the dog has several senses, isn't it? So that's the story. So Nandasena Ratnapala, Professor Nandasena Ratnapala used positivism or interpretivism. එයා ලැබ් එකකට වෙලා ටෙස්ට් කරාද මොනවා හරි පොසිටිවිස්ටික් රිසර්ච් කෙනෙක් විදියට. නැත්තම් ඉන්ටර්ප්‍රිටිවිස්ටික් රිසර්ච් කෙනෙක් විදියට සොසයිටි එකට ගිහිල්ලා රිසර්ච් එකේ පාර්ට් එකක් වෙලා රිසර්ච් එක කරා. What did he do?
Interpretivism.
He used interpretivism because he understood, right? He understood in society the same thing is interpreted in different ways, like consuming alcohol, eating pork, right? And taking interest. Likewise, those things are interpreted in different ways by different societies. So, under interpretivism, what it says is, yes, there's no one objective reality. There are multiple realities, and people, the society, creates reality. That's the nature of reality. And how you get to know that? Becoming a part of the research. But positivistic researchers, like scientists, what they say is, no, reality is objective. There's one reality. And you have to test that in as a scientific research. And the researcher and the research are independent. The researcher doesn't become a part of the research like Professor Nandaseena Ratnapala became a part of the research he was doing. No, positivistic researchers don't become part of the research. Right? So that's so I took some time to explain the difference between positivism and interpretivism. These are two research traditions that the researchers use. Two research traditions that the researchers use. Right? It's like two religions. One religion, they treat it, there's one objective reality, and the researcher and the research are two different things. And you do an experiment and you find out the reason, truth. But interpretism says, no, there are multiple realities. The same thing is understood and verified in different ways, interpreted in different ways. And usually, to know that reality, you have to become the part of the research. That's called interpretivism. Positivism and interpretivism. Putha, did you understand the difference? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Okay. I think that's enough, right, for today. And next week, I'll teach you, right, quantitative versus qualitative research approaches. And for today, I think this is enough. Next week, I'll teach you about quantitative and qualitative research. Okay, students. So today, I taught you the difference between research design and research methods, the difference between those two. Then I taught you the three criteria that could be used to differentiate between good and not so good social research. What are the three criteria? Reliability, validity, and replicability. Then Buddha, I taught you the 5 types of research design. The 5 types of research designs. What are the 5 types? What are the 5 types of research designs? Number 1, cross-sectional. Number 2, experimental, or you can say experimental number 1, then cross-sectional, longitudinal, case study, and comparative case study. So we discussed about the 5 types of research designs as well. Right, 5 types of research designs. 5 types of research designs. Okay. Then afterwards, I took some time to explain to you between this, what's this? Causality, cause and effect. And I told you experimental design is the best type to establish the cause and effect. And on the other hand, the easiest type of research to be done is the cross-sectional design. That also we understood. Then I came to a very important point where now we are in this slide. I told you that there are 2 research paradigms, 2 schools of thoughts, 2 religions in terms of research: positivism and interpretivism. And with that, we shall conclude. Next week, I will teach quantitative and qualitative research approaches, which is a simple thing, but let me do it next week. Okay. Any questions? Do you have any questions? Iris, is it everything okay? Pereira?
Yes,
And-
sir.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, Uda. So we shall now, it's almost 9:30, right? So we started around 6:30 and we came up to 9:30. So I think that's enough of discussion. So thank you very much, Uda. Really appreciated of your participation. Right. I hope, I wish that all 61 students would be there and we shall continue. So let me take this opportunity to thank you again and wish you a good night, Puta. Please take care.